Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
This is an email I received several years ago from a community member and friend, Cherie Reinecker. Grandma is 88 years old and still drives her own car, and she writes this. Dear granddaughter, the other day I went up to our local Christian bookstore and saw a Honk If You Love Jesus bumper sticker. I was feeling particularly sassy that day because just come from a thrilling choir practice, followed by a thunderous prayer meeting. So I bought the sticker and put it on my bumper. And boy, am I glad I did. What an uplifting experience that followed. I was stopped at a red light at a busy intersection, just lost in thought about the Lord and how good He is. And I found out that lots of people love Jesus. While I was sitting there, the guy behind started honking like crazy. Then he leaned out of his window and he screamed, "For the love of God! Go, go, Jesus Christ, go!" What an exuberant cheerleader he is for our Jesus. Everybody started honking. I just leaned out of my window and started waving and smiling at all these loving people. I even honked my horn a few times to share in the love. And there must have been a man from Florida back there somewhere because I heard him yelling something about a sunny beach. I know. I saw another guy waving in a funny way with only one finger up. I asked my young teenage grandson what that meant, and he grinned and said it must be a Hawaiian good luck symbol or something. Well, I never met anyone from Hawaii, so I leaned out the window and gave him the good luck sign back. My grandson burst out laughing. Why, even he was enjoying this religious experience. A couple of people were so caught up in the joy of the moment, they got out of their cars and started walking towards me. I bet they wanted to pray or ask what church I attended, but this is when I noticed the light had changed. So grinning, I waved at all my brothers and sisters and drove on through the intersection. I noticed that I was the only car that got through the intersection before the light changed again, and I felt kind of sad to have to leave them there with all that love we had shared. So I slowed the car down, leaned out my window, and gave them the Hawaiian good luck sign one last time as I drove away. Praise the Lord for such wonderful folks. We will ride again soon. Love, Grandma. Grandma had a different version of reality. The truth is, all of us believe that what we experience is objective fact, and it's always filtered through our perceptions. Now, hopefully, we're a little bit more in tune with objective fact than Grandma is. But this whole month, we've been exploring healing and wholeness. This is the final part in the series, and I've titled today's message, Steps to Healthy Thinking. Because that's where we interact with divine principle, is in our thought. And if we can clear our perception, align our thinking to the truth of who and what we are, healing happens automatically. It's revealed as the truth of our nature. And we're talking about healing in all areas of our lives. Any place that we have a false perception of who we are and what the world is and what God is, it is a place that is asking for healing, for wholeness to be revealed. It's been a great series. Reverend Jean Marie gave a wonderful message last week on healing the body, which is, of course, what our teaching was founded on. I love the stories she told of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, our founders, and how it was their need to experience and express God through their physical bodies that led to our whole movement taking up these principles of the indwelling Christ mind that we can access and demonstrate and express. The place I'd like to begin today, well, first of all, I'm going to give you 3 steps to healthy thinking today, but one of them has 2 parts, so it's really 4, but we're going to call it 3 because I'm kind of attached to the 3-part sermon, the 3-point sermon. So we're going to talk about having faith, we're going to talk about finding our willingness, and we're going to talk about finding our courage. I was thinking today about what does it mean to to live these unity principles, to live our wholeness. And I thought we would start by reviewing our purpose and values statement, because this really is as succinct as I know how to say it about who we are, why we exist. Can we read this together, our purpose? In community, we nurture and empower each other, transforming our lives that we may serve the world. And then we have 3 value statements. The first value is being. We live from our oneness with God and each other, experiencing abundance in connection with all life. I thought I had it memorized. I looked way too soon. And becoming. Through spiritual practice and through grace, we heal and grow, revealing the Christ within. And belonging. We create a spiritual home for all people, knowing that we are one body and that we belong to each other. And if you wouldn't mind bringing the being slide back up, this is the first of our value statements. This is really the basis for our understanding of healing and wholeness. We live from our oneness with God. This is the deepest truth. This is what our name means, and therefore all other people, because we're all one with God. And if we can live this truth, we experience and express healing and wholeness. Why did Jesus say he came? My Bible people out there may remember. He said, I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. And what I was kind of meditating on that verse this week, and it is not like a once you get there, you got it kind of a thing. I believe what Jesus, the rabbi in the Middle East 2,000 years ago, who had this radical teaching of non-duality and oneness, I think what he's saying is there is an evolutionary spiritual path more abundantly. To have life and have it more abundantly. That Jesus taught us, and how do I know Jesus was a non-dual teacher? Because judge not lest you be judged. That right there is non-duality expressed. It's oneness with God. That when we judge others, we have placed ourselves outside of the container, outside of the paradigm that we're all connected, and we believe that some are okay and some are not okay, and if I experience it against someone else, then someone can experience that of me, and I can be judged as less than okay. And what Jesus said is that he's here to teach us about living a life that is more abundant. And we never diminish the work and the value of Jesus of Nazareth. But Jesus said that he's not the only one. He said, those who come after me will do greater things still. And later, the early Christian writers said that we are joint heirs with Christ. And what does that mean? If we're to be an heir is to inherit something. What did Jesus inherit as the Son of God? The kingdom of heaven, which is ours as well. And where did he teach the kingdom of heaven is? Within. Said some would say it's low here and low there, but no, the kingdom of heaven is within us. We live from our oneness. We live from the knowledge and the lived experience of being in the kingdom of heaven right here on earth as in heaven. And when we begin to release our negative thought, we release our scarcity thinking, release our feeling that we're not enough, like we're somehow inferior, we begin to let go of that error thought, which is what we define as sin in unity. We let that go and we come back into truth, into righteousness, that we are one with God. Then healing automatically occurs. We automatically begin to see it in our lives. You know the old saying that we hear a lot, I'll believe it when I see it. In spiritual practice, it's just the opposite. You'll see it when you believe it. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to live by faith. And that may be a little vague. We all know what that means. But I'm talking particularly about finding faith in the vision of who you're called to be. One of my favorite stories of healing is also, Jesus is very present today. Thanks, big guy. I can't believe that I've already gone to week 4 without using this story. It comes from John chapter 5. It says that there was a pool near the sheep gate in Jerusalem, and it was called in Aramaic Bethesda. And there were 5 covered colonnades there, and many of the city's disabled would gather there. And the historians say they probably were there to beg, to ask for help. There was no social safety net in those days. They would come there to seek help, to help live their lives. But the folklore was that there in that pool, every so often an angel, a certain angel, would come and trouble the water, and the first person to get into the water would receive a healing. And so Jesus came there, and he spoke to one man in particular. And he said, "How long have you been here?" And the man answered him, 38 years. "And why have you not gone into the water?" And then the man replied, "I have no one to help me." There's a key metaphysical teaching here. We know, as we just established, we're all called to live a life of wholeness. And yet we will stay in bondage to our scarcity and our limitation for decades. And we have a story as to why we're stuck. No one will help me. I never got the job that I needed, and my parents couldn't afford to give me the education. I had a bad marriage. We can name whatever the victim story is that we want, but we'll always come up with some reason as why we're not living the abundant life that Jesus promised is ours. And so the next thing that happens is really the key to this story. Jesus did not respond to the man's excuse. I don't have anyone to help me get in the pool. And then that, of course, implied is, you want to give a brother some help? Get me down there the next time. I'll be happy to do it. And Jesus didn't even acknowledge the excuse or the victim story. What he said was, "Would you be made whole?" I love it in the King James. It's so poetic. "Wouldest thou be made whole?" This has a little bit more oomph in it. We know Jesus didn't speak in King James English or modern English. He spoke in Aramaic. And it's not about the words themselves. It was about the energy, the knowledge. Jesus knew he lived from his oneness with God and all beings in such a way that when he asked the question, something was communicated to this man. There are other stories, healing stories of Jesus. Remember the one with the woman who touched the hem of his garment? And the scripture tells us that Jesus felt the power go out from him. And this is often with people who have a healing gift. We know that they channel certain energy, and energy moves through them in a unique way. But that's not what happens in this story. Jesus didn't zap him whole. He just asked a question. Would you be made whole? Jesus knew that within that man was an unremembered truth of living from wholeness, living from oneness. And there was something about Jesus' own faith and knowing that ignited something in the man there on his mat. And he remembered. He remembered that he would be made whole. And as the story says, he rose up and walked. It's a powerful metaphor, a powerful template for us to experience wholeness. It's, would you be a person who doesn't have money problems? Would you be a person who has healthy relationships? Would you be a person who has a healthy body? Is that what you would be? But sometimes we believe the conditions, we believe our own negative thoughts more than the truth of who we are. And so the first step to healthy spiritual thinking is to get a vision of who God called you to be. And I'm not saying be somebody you're not. I'm saying be the more evolved, revealed self that you have not yet experienced. I call him Fit Michael. He's the one that doesn't struggle with going to the gym. He doesn't overeat. But I see him in my mind. It's me. It's not me becoming somebody else. It's me who has more fully embodied the truth of oneness with God as around fitness. So I have that vision. I don't know what that vision is for you, but whatever, and wanted to bring that meditation we did earlier today specifically because I knew I was going to be speaking about this. You know that you have gotten through some hard times in your past. At the time, you didn't know how you were going to do it, but you did. Something brought you through it. And the same thing is still true. It's an evolutionary process. You're here to experience life more abundantly. So wherever you're limited today, there is a higher self, if you will, who knows the way forward. A more fully realized and demonstrated and embodied you that already knows. And that's the vision that I'm inviting you to find and have faith that it's there for you. That you are called to be more than you've been so far. This is only part of the journey. There is more of you to be seen. And so the first step is to have faith in the vision of who God has called you to be. We could go home right now and then we'll just, I wish that were true. I could just just know that and the six-pack just magically appears. Or even that, or I would just know the truth and I find myself levitated to the gym and I just let my muscles automatically do that. It doesn't work that way, does it? What's required? Action. So the second step is this: to find your willingness. To find your willingness, and this is the one that has two parts. I'm going to ask you, and this is the word that I purposely did not put it in the title or in the description because I wanted people to come to church today. The word is discipline. And discipline means to be a disciple of. And so what I'm asking you is to be a disciple to the truth of your vision. To walk in the way of fit Michael, or abundant Laura, or successful Jeannie, whatever your vision is, to be a disciple of that more fully evolved you. And be willing to stop one thing and to start one thing. That's all I'm going to ask you to do this week. Be willing to start doing one thing new. Maybe we should reverse them. That's the denial and affirmation thing, right? Let's clear the deck first. Let's be willing to stop just one unhealthy, unhelpful pattern in our lives. So mine was kind of, I've been actually practicing this, knowing I was going to give this talk for a month, is like gearing up to it, and it came out last Sunday. We got back from retreat. I thought, well, I guess I better. So my stop was to stop making excuses for not going to the gym. It wasn't to start going to the gym. It was to stop avoiding it. You get the difference? It was stop because that's what I would do. Is like, well, I'm so busy. It's been such a big week. We worked so hard at that retreat. Sort of. We went so deep. If you haven't had a chance to go on retreat with us, next time when one of these comes up, I really hope you'll join us. It was powerful. But Monday, put it on the calendar the week before, I got myself to the gym. I stopped making excuses. And then to start doing just one thing. And so for me, it's always about food and exercise. That's just what I'm dealing with right now. I'm just being a little transparent and real with you all today. So I'm sure you'll translate it into whatever you need. But to just start tracking what I'm eating. I have a little app, and I just write down everything I put in my mouth. Bring some awareness to it. Those two simple things. Just stop doing one thing that's harmful, that's standing in the way of being the disciple to your vision, and to start doing one thing that is in alignment with that truth. In James chapter 2, it says, faith without works is dead. What does that mean? If we say we have faith in our vision, but nothing changes in the realm of our choices and actions, it's not real faith. Faith is not a head thing. Well, it is. It begins in our mind, also in our heart and our soul, but it will demonstrate in the physical realm. We will begin to act differently. I want to do a series at some point on habits, the power of habits. Habitualized habit, routine thinking is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us in human form, but it can also be one of the most destructive forces. Do you know what I'm talking about? When we go unconscious, if we get in a good habit of healthy care, how many of you have to talk yourself into brushing your teeth? Don't raise your hand. Some people still do. That's okay. You can. Most of us have habitualized it. we just do it. We just, we probably when we were a kid, we didn't do it, but now that we're grown, we just do it. It's a healthy habit. And so, take a look at your habits. Stop doing one thing that's standing in the way, just one. Start doing one thing that will help you embody the truth of who you are. I found an image I'd like to share with you. Can we bring up that picture? So I may be an ordained minister of Unity, but I have been known, and my personal trainer will attest to this, to say a few not ministerial words. I actually bear a wound today. He had me, I was fighting with the punching bag, like the big bag, and the glove like wore a little piece of skin off, and I was like, man, you had no idea your pastor was so macho, did you? But not really. When I'm doing it, when I'm in my exercise, I'm not loving it, I have to tell you. And I don't see immediate results. It's not like I go to the gym once and then I can fit in my skinny suit again. It's not like that. And I may be saying a few harsh words while I'm doing it. But it's the first part. I won't give up. In the 12-step tradition, we say, don't quit before the miracle. Keep doing it. And eventually it will become habitualized. It will become just a part of who you are. Like when I see Fit Michael, he doesn't stress over or try and, he doesn't spend as much energy on figuring out about what to eat and whether or not to exercise as I do currently. He doesn't spend that time on that. That energy is freed up in him to do other things and fight other battles and to overcome other areas of false belief and healing. So I'm holding that vision of him. And just this week, because I had to be honest, I had to stop doing one thing and start doing one more. The last thing I want to ask you to do is find courage. And there's a particular way I would like you to demonstrate this courage as a step to healthy thinking. Have the courage to share your journey with someone. I've said it before, I think we are the most isolated and connected generation that's ever lived on planet Earth. One of the ways the isolation shows up is sometimes we only talk to people who believe exactly like we do. And that's not what I'm asking you to share. I'm asking you to share your thinking with a trusted advisor, someone you have a love and respect for who will tell you when they need to correct. They don't co-sign your BS, in other words. Your belief system. That's always what I mean when I say BS. Your belief system. They will gently and lovingly correct you. Or maybe not even correct you, just ask you to question your thinking on that. Because some of you are grandma at the intersection and you don't know it. And you need people so you can check things out with. If you don't currently have anyone, I would suggest perhaps a therapist. If you are in the 12-step tradition, a sponsor is a great person, some kind of a mentor, someone who is just a few steps ahead of the journey, but who loves you. And I know a therapist may not love you in the beginning. They love the check they're going to get. But believe me, the therapeutic relationship is so helpful if you find the right therapist. And you can do this with your friends. I have 3 prayer partners that I speak with every week. And these are long-term relationships. One is about 15 years, the other is about 18 years, and the other is 28 years that I've known these people in a spiritual context. And I ask them to point out my BS. And I don't always like to hear it, but I do trust it, and I'm willing to listen to what they have to say. You know, feedback is a very powerful and underused tool on the spiritual path. When you get feedback, what we have to do is learn to not take it personally. If someone is correcting your behavior or your thinking, they're not saying you're bad. They're saying, here's an area you may have missed the mark you might want to look at. So in the beginning, when we're in this, we are often so defended and so armored that we will avoid any negative feedback ever. This is actually one of the hallmarks of narcissism, not healthy thinking. that we need to find a way to cultivate relationships where we get real, constructive, helpful, supportive feedback. Once we get to the place where we've dropped enough of our armor where we can ask for feedback, we typically don't like it in the beginning, and it's very hurtful, and we want to run away from it. But what I've found is if you can not give up during that phase, you'll come to see that that feedback is such a gift, and you come to a different place, like a third stage of it, where you actually seek it out because you know there's more freedom on the other side. If you're willing to ask someone to help you find those areas where you're still living in your stuckness, in your victimhood, in your separation thinking. And then we come back to living from our oneness with God, which is who and what we are. Brene Brown, wonderful writer right here in Houston, very famous right now. You've seen her on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday and other places around this. She says two things. One is you need a 1 square inch piece of paper, and that's tiny. You see what that is? And she suggests finding the names that would fill that piece of space. These are the people whose opinions truly matter. Find those people that you would put on that list, and that's who you go to when you really need good feedback. And then the second thing that she asks is that we find vulnerability language when we're having these conversations. And one of the best ones that she suggests is this: to start a conversation with, the story I'm telling myself is. Because, see, we're grandma on the intersection again, and we assume we know what everybody is thinking and what their motivations are, and so sometimes we make up stories about what we think somebody meant by that look, about what they're not returning our email in a timely manner meant, and so we make up all these stories, and it's usually not in true alignment with our truth. And so to begin a conversation with, the story I'm telling myself is that I've disappointed you in some way. The story that I'm telling myself is that you're angry with me. The story that I'm telling myself is I've offended you. That's a beautiful way to open a conversation, and then you can begin to get that real dialogue and connection. It does require vulnerability, but it is vulnerability is the birthplace of creativity and belonging. That's the community we're seeking to create here at Unity of Houston, where we foster this kind of dialogue and these kind of connections. We're trying to find all these different ways that people get to make those kind of trusted friends to go on their 1-inch square right here at church. If you don't currently have those people in your life, I would encourage you to stick around and start making some connections. So instead of making a goal to lose 10 pounds or 40 or whatever it is, what if instead we chose to live as though we were a person who fully inhabited self-love in the body? Instead of trying to go out and find a boyfriend or a girlfriend to end our loneliness, what if instead we decided to live as a person who lived and loved and trusted so beautifully and openly in all their relationships? Can you feel how attractive it is? Well, I ask you a question. Which is sexier, to come in with your loneliness or your love? If you live love with children and animals and your coworkers and your family and the people you sit next to at church, you live that space of loving, trusting, generous way of being with people, that is attractive. And instead of trying to manifest the $10,000 you need to get you out of this scrape, see yourself as a person of such abundance and wisdom and good planning of resources that you don't ever get in $10,000 scrapes. Amen? Life is so much bigger than we know. We are so much bigger than we know. I just want to close by saying we seek to not judge here. We don't criticize or judge. We want to create such a space of acknowledging our humanity in each other, but we do call each other up and we do lift each other into a higher way of being. And it's happening. I keep saying something is happening here, and I'm not making it up. I see it demonstrated over and over again throughout this church. People are coming alive to their own gifts. They're finding those connections. New programs are starting. New opportunities for us to serve the world. This may not be your church. If you're new, you're just invited to come check us out. But if you're looking for a place where you can be lifted into the truth of who you are and have someone hold your hand as you take those tentative steps into the life that you know is yours to live, this may be the place for you. And I invite you to give us a try. Wherever you are on your spiritual path, you are welcome here. I love you. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.